Alright guys, so I'm going to try to make this quick because I'm not a professional YouTuber or TikToker or anything like that, but I did install these rough country running boards on my truck about a month ago, and I found that the instructions that came with it were sorely lacking when it came to the wiring installation. Everything to the point of the running boards and the motors being mounted to the frame is great, or should I say the body, not the frame. All of that is just fine. I agreed with that entirely. That's all good and dandy. But when it came time to mount this controller right here, the instructions were kind of vague on how to do it, but you definitely want to put it on first, and then you'll go to your wiring next. So how I did it was I just basically plugged everything in. I started with one side harness, I think it was the left side, and I started routing it to where I think the harness will be out of the way of anything else on the truck. So I tied it to some of the parts here along the way. Some of the parts of the stock harness, just kind of kept it out of place. Now that one up there, I don't have any wire ties on it because it's up against two soft surfaces, so I didn't worry about it too much. Back here at the back, this is the big thing that I want you guys to understand. So the manual tells you, or the installation instructions tell you to put that thing through a hole at the front of the truck. No. Take you, I think it was a 3/8 drill bit or maybe a little bigger. I put it through this plastic cap. There's two of them. The big one I wouldn't use. Do the little one because it's more accessible inside the truck. When I get up there, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I put it through, I went under the carpet, put a zip tie around it, and then I put some clear sealant on it first, and then I went back to it with the seam sealer. So the parts I used, right? So this is what I started with. I put this clear sealant in it for waterproofing, and then I decided I wanted something to keep it nice and stiff and sturdy because I live on a gravel road. So I went with this seam sealer. This stuff's going to be a little difficult to find. This is usually a body shop supply. But going back to the wiring underneath the vehicle here, I just put wire ties in key locations to make sure that nothing was rubbing or chafing in any way. The power harness to the battery, or what they want you to put to the battery, I ran it through these little sections of frame here, keeping it out of the way of anything else that some other technician, or really honestly me, because I do all my own vehicles, but put it up through behind this splash guard. Some kits on Amazon. Put these little zip ties in the fender liner because this is how GM does all their wiring, so why not on my truck, right? Another one up there, probably like 12 inches away, because there's only two wires going through that thing. It doesn't need a lot to hold it together. Back here at the back, so this is where I did that crossover with the harness, where they want you to put it across the bottom of the truck. There is a guy out there who suggested putting it through the floor of the vehicle, and I don't know how he had enough wire left over to do it that way. So this is the way I did mine. I just kind of got creative with how I mounted the zip ties to it. Again, if you can go on Amazon and get something that gives you these little doohickeys here where you just pop them through the frame, that'll make this really fast. But I did with what I had that day, so this is how it went down. Again, just making sure that the harness is nice and sturdy, tied up real good. Not too much tension on these little white wires. These were kind of a bear for me to figure out how I wanted to do it. When I got to this motor here, there was a lot left over, so I kind of wrapped it around the motor and zip tied it in a couple locations. For these, that tip that they give you about putting 90-degree bends in the zip tie, that's how I got these zip ties through one section of frame and back out to the other, so I could have it nice and tight in these locations here. Don't want to do it too tight. You don't want to damage the wires over time. Like that one right there just might be a little bit too tight. So that's what I ended up doing for underneath. Alright, so with these lights that are down here, what I did for the front ones is I put them about 19.5 inches away from this little plastic piece here at the front. And then back here at the back, tape measure right there, I went to about 22 inches to the edge for the back door, and I did this on both sides, and I think it lights up the boards really well. There's no uneven light pattern. Alright, so underneath the hood, I ran that harness up from down there. It's kind of that black shiny one down there. And I decided that I didn't want to put it to the battery because technicians need to work on these batteries, and change them. Sometimes you need to jump something off. It tends to then become this mess that's in the way. The instruction manual tells you not to use any existing grounds. I use this one right here. I don't have any issues out of it. I'm not too worried because it does have a fuse on the negative and the positive side. If you have an issue, I can't guarantee you won't, but in my case, I just don't. I mean, it's a ground wire that goes to the chassis of the truck. This is the PCM for reference, but I'm not having any issues out of it, so I wouldn't worry too much about using that as a ground spot. Now, here's my power wire. I wish they would have made this a little bit longer. So, quick access to the 30 amp fuse right here. Instead of putting it to the battery, I use this lug right here. These are for accessories that you would put on like an outfitter. So police vehicles and first responding vehicles and work trucks, etc. So this lives underneath your fuse box. And that's the way I wanted to do it, so that when it was done, it was nice, neat, and tidy. Wire comes out the bottom. Don't have to worry about anything getting on it. Next important point is going to be these little sensors. First thing I want you to do, it says basically to do some complicated procedure to get the little magnets mounted to the door. All I did was pull the double-sided tape off of this thing, stick it to right here on the sensor. I closed the door, opened it back up. The magnet was stuck almost where it needed to be. I just had to push it until it was basically touching the rubber gasket right there. And then it works flawlessly, so you don't have to do all that crazy measuring or put toothpaste on it. None of that. This works just fine. Another thing I want to mention, so you got these little rubber things that hold the wires in there. You do kind of want to put them down here on the surface where it's just starting to get flat, so you can get a good mounting surface for the adhesive. The wires are really small up behind this, so you make it basically do a couple 90-degree turns around the pinch weld for the where the weather stripping goes. I pull this up, and you unbolt your storage, your floor storages. It's some Torx bits. That little plug, the body plug that I put the wires through, it's right underneath this thing. You'll be able to just barely get into it. Especially if you have big hands, it might be kind of tricky, but you'll be able to just barely get into it. Run the wires for this side on the left side, then you run it across. I used a coat hanger, run it across, and put the sensors in for that. The manual will tell you to put them here, but you have plenty of wire to put that sensor up here on both sides. It also tells you to drill a hole to make a ground. I used a chassis ground that already existed, works just fine. The other side of the vehicle is exactly the same as this one. Everything looks the same, it's just, on the right hand side. I decided to mount my service switch, is what I call it, right there. I just stuck it there. This is what it looks like when that panel is back on. I can just reach into it. I can do it while I'm driving, no big deal. We don't have to turn this off very often, maybe just a few circumstances, right? For those of you off-road, or the technician wants to put it on a lift and for some reason they want the board down. They're trying to open the door while it's on the lift or something. You can just cut that off for them and you don't have to worry about any headaches for when somebody else tries to work on the vehicle. So that's kind of it for now. The lights will go off after a few minutes. So I'm just I know it's bright in here right now, but I'm gonna show you guys. When I put them in those measurements I told you about, they light up right in the middle of the doorway to get in and out of the vehicle. Anyway, you can comment on this and I'll see if I can answer any questions. But what I'd recommend doing, and I should have said this at the start, was kind of pausing it and taking notes if you needed the exact measurements. So that's it.